Me.
Tash Jones, that's right. City Council member from Jamaica Beach. Okay, well, board, if we can approve the minutes from September 30th and the financials. We're going to get approval. Make a motion. Nick? Thank you. Okay. All right. Sally's not here. And the police report's not here. So let's go on to Roger Reese is not here. Where'd he go? Marie Robb's not here. So anyways, we're having a nice time. Don't know what to do right now. Anybody want to do a song and dance? Craig, you can do something. Well, I have no idea what happened to Roger Reese. Where's Marie Robb? Rosemary says they could be in the church. That's where we originally were going to have our meeting. But this has more room, and we can have food. How it started? How we started it? All right, Chris, good for you. How we started the West Galveston Island Property Owners Association. If you remember 1998, there was a tropical storm, Francis, and it was out in the Gulf for days, and it devastated the West End, completely devastated it. So there were so much damage to all the properties owners associations. There's Marie Robb. Welcome, Marie. Anyways, I got a group of people together saying that every property owners association had some issues that they needed to get done with the city and with the state. And we felt we could do it as one voice rather than 40 different property owners associations. So that's how we started. And we've been on ever since. Marie, if you would like to say a few words, I know you will. Get her near a microphone and she's dangerous. So glad to have you, Marie.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here on the island. It's warmer than I thought it would be when I heard about that wind this morning. But things are moving along at the city. I guess the most exciting news is we have two beach nourishment projects that will be happening. And the initial one, which will be a beneficial use of dredge project, should be let, meaning the contracts will be going out in December. And then that should start at some point, probably mid-25, and following or maybe somewhere near the same time, we have a KEPRA project, which is a coastal erosion response project that will follow that. That will hopefully come from a West End sand source that will make it a lot more cost effective. So the initial project runs from like Hershey Beach through Bermuda Beach, and the second project will run from 7 Mile Road to 13 Mile Road, which means as most people are aware, our predominant drift is to the west. So the sand will continue to head west. But it's being put in the most erosive area. And I see Mark there. So he's like, what about our beach? Because he is in Seascape. And they are in the process of applying for a FEMA project. So that will happen there, and I'm sure we have a West End sand source that is that far away, but we're dealing with the Corps of Engineers, so it could be that long or that long from being approved. And I think so that sand would be used for KEPRA and for the FEMA project. And why? Because a big part, like the beneficial use of dredge, will be pumped in from the ship channel, but the other projects are trucked. So the shorter distance you can truck the sand, the better. So that's some of the most exciting things we have going on. And then some of the other things that are in the process now that make some people happy and make some people not so happy is we are working on drainage ditches. And everybody bitches about drainage. And then when we start digging ditches, everyone bitches about ditches. So it's one of those no-win situations, seems like. I remember 2 days after Burl, and just by the way, we are still not back in our house, it's Burl. 2 days after Burl, someone called me and said, I have water in my ditch. I'll be honest, I did not call them back because it probably wouldn't have been a very pleasant conversation. But we are in the process of a major drainage. We are in the process of a major street plan. One of the things I had a big discussion with our city manager is so the street plan or the street assessing of the streets was done before Burl. Well, you got to get people back out there because there was a heck of a lot of changes, especially on the west end, to our streets. And an example would be 8 Mile Road, which people had me go assess this week. And it was actually as bad as 37th Street when the company that went bankrupt and removed the top layer and it stayed there. You could drive down it and lose a half an inch from your thighs. It was so bouncy. But so they are going to be we won't have the company, but our streets team, our public works department is so good. They will be out looking at that. I know, Sally, don't you have to leave early this morning? Do you?
Yes, you go ahead with your report.
Okay. Let's see, what else? What am I forgetting? Or what questions do you have? I'm trying to think what else is going on right now at the city. Ash?
What did you say that was going to happen to 8 Mile? Are they resurfacing?
I think they're going to be filling in the low spots, but they did go out there and fill the potholes in, yes. Anytime you have a pothole, text me. Potholes can get fixed very fast now. We have all our own equipment for that, so we can take care of that quickly. And I'll give you my number since I said text me, and it's 409-256-4518. And that's the best way to get a hold of me is to text me. You can also email me, and even though I have a city phone and I have a city email, I couldn't even tell you what my city phone number is. But because of my initial phone, I got so many spam calls, they changed it. And even though I always have it with me, and even though I check my emails and stuff, marie@marierobb.com is the better email to get me on. And it's MARIEROBB. Let's see what else is going on. Yes.
How's the negotiations between setting up funding from like the park board and the city and the court and all that? Y'all still working on all those agreements?
I'll tell you, all the entities have been, it's so much easier to work with the entities than sometime our own city management, because the entities have all stepped up to the table, and the port is willing to give us an extra $1 million. The park board came up with $300,000, and they're looking at where they might be able to do more. So you have to understand, the park board, most of the, like Seawolf Park, all of the properties that they oversee are city properties. And so with the park board, you have hot tax, which is hotel tax, hotel or short-term rental. And that's restricted. That could only be used on some things. But one of the things that I've asked them to look at, and that we're looking at, is we could cover a police district on the beach, because that's a tourist, that's a safety thing.
Yeah.
And we all know how many issues come from the beach, as well as the areas that get out of control. So they are willing and working with us to see how we can get the things that could be paid for by HOT, paid for by HOT. But then there's the revenues that are generated off the city properties that is unrestricted. So we should be getting half of that, or a goodly portion of that, because of the fact that we own the property. So we have a great working relationship with the park board as well as with the port. I don't know if you saw this week in the paper, Norwegian Cruise Lines. We had the GEDP summit this week. GEDP is the Galveston Economic Development Partnership, and it was great because they had the contract signing ceremony right at the GEDP, and Norwegian Cruise Line committed to 10 years here at the port. And we're also working to see, like currently we get, I think it's 25 cents a passenger, but we get $1 for every long-term parking. And just those two things now brings $3 million to the city. And to understand, like the city and UTMB, one of the major challenges, Sally will tell you that the major challenge we have is the 3.5 tax cap. I would tell you the major problem we have is that 30% of our property is off the tax roll. So every time you see a large tract of land go to a not-for-profit, that comes off the property tax rolls. And who's going to eventually end up paying for it? You and I. Because we're an island. We're limited on space. I mean, we have some good projects coming in. That would be something to talk about. We finally got the beach access plan through. We did remove the special use area from it, but the other two, And Tierra, in my opinion, it's a good project. They build on the coast. They put together a great coastal team. Now the project that's trying to go next to it, I will do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen, because I don't think it's a good idea. I think they're putting it too close to the water. The person put together a team that has never developed on the coast, contrary to what you may have read in the Washington Post. And so, I mean, we have to have development, but it needs to be sustainable development.
You know, Marie, we empower you to make those changes. You know, if you don't think it's right, then go for it.
Yep, thank you. Even if somebody told me, oh Marie, I think it's right, I'd say, sorry, I don't. I had this is horrible to say, but I did have the unfortunate displeasure of getting stuck in a 3-hour lunch with that developer. And Lord of mercy, that's how I can put it. So things are moving forward in a positive way. And see what else. Any other questions? Seems like I was just here. Seems like we're meeting early this week. But feel free to call me anytime. Like, it really frustrates me when someone finally calls me and they say, I've been trying to get this done for 2 months. I'm like, why didn't you call me? Because I can always help speed up the process. And we are enhancing our call-in centers. The city, I would say it's pretty much 95% right now, will be taking over the registration of short-term rentals, since we're the group that is responsible for implementing the ordinances. Although I do have on the council agenda, this next agenda, I know anybody who's here lives in Pirates, or anyone who's had a dilapidated structure near them, seems like it's a forever process. And I'm asking that question at the next council meeting, because it awed me that finally at that Antigua apartment that they went in and cited. I've been complaining about Antigua and turning them in since 2012. And finally, and do you know how many seniors live in that building? And it is such a criminal shame. It just is a criminal shame. So, or how would you like, Jerry's aware of this, how would you like to live on Spoonbill with that dilapidated? Or the infamous Beyonce house that 120 days ago, they got a 60-day notice that they either had to tear down or the city's going to tear it down, and there it still sits. So we have something very wrong going on in our process. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. But anyway, thank you. Well,
could you give us an update on the Margaritaville project, and keeping in mind that we're going to be discussing cruises and things, is there discussions that have been initiated about bringing that cruise line into Galveston as well?
I didn't even know there was a Margarita cruise line. I think right now every cruise line that's out there wants to be in Galveston. I do not know if they're in communication with Margaritaville. It's hard to give an update on that project. I know the initial PUD, or plan use development, they came in with was shot down. And it wasn't so much because of the hotel, but it was what they were trying to do on the other side, where they had, it was another one of them similar to the project next to Tierra, where they had over 10 variances in their request, but it was the the properties were being placed so tightly together, they couldn't even fit sidewalks. They were going to do elevated walkways behind the property. I mean, could you see buying $1 million property and Margaritaville, it's not known for milk drinking, and at 1 a.m. in the morning, there you have all these people stumbling on a raised boardwalk going back to their places. I mean, it just simply made no sense. But I know they had equipment out there moving land before Burl. Since Burl, they've removed all the equipment before Burl, and it hasn't come back. So maybe they're waiting for the end of the hurricane season, or I've also heard that they're having issues with their financing.
At one time, the streets were gonna be so narrow, a fire truck couldn't
A fire, yeah, and they had one entrance, one egress in. I mean, it was just totally ludicrous. And that's why it was like, when it came to Margaritaville and the access plan, I voted against Margaritaville, so yeah, if something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Any other questions?
Well, we appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I'll be termed out. I'll be termed out come May 26th, but I will be running for mayor. So.
All right, way to go. Thanks so much, Marie. Okay, Sally, Gulf Coast Protection District. There she is.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate Jerry moving me up the schedule. I have to beat feet to Houston for a family event today, so I won't be able to stay for the entire meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sally Bacco. I'm the Director of Policy and Governmental Relations for the City of Galveston, but I come here to brief you on the Coastal Texas project in my role as Board Director with the Gulf Coast Protection District. And I just had to come and tell you about a significant step we took at our meeting on October 9th. The board approved what is called an accelerated funding amendment to the design agreement that we executed with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Now, what does this mean? An accelerated funding agreement allows the Corps to accept funding from the district in advance of federal funds being appropriated, as long as we don't exceed the non-federal share obligated for the design work on the project. So what does that mean? That means in this amendment, we can start the pre-construction engineering design work on the Bolivar and West Galveston dune and beach system, and we can begin that same pre-construction engineering design work on the large gate system, what I like to call the economic engine of the project. But that Bolivar and West Galveston Island dune and beach system PED work is what we call the pre-engineering design. That PED work can start simultaneously. It's not like one goes before the other. So I'm very excited about that, because as you may recall, the Texas legislature has already appropriated $200 million for our non-federal share requirements for the Coastal Texas project. So what happens now is this accelerated funding amendment has to go up to Corps headquarters. They have to approve it, and then we have to enter into an agreement with the GLO and the Corps as to what, how much money we're going to put forward, advance. Now, simultaneously, this is part of what I call the trifecta. What we also have going on is the work plan, the fiscal year 2024 work plan for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers includes $500,000 for PED work on an ecosystem element of the project, which is breakwaters along Bolivar. Now, what does that mean for us? What that means for us is if we can get through that head work as quickly as possible, that means we can position ourselves with final specifications and design work needed to bump into a new construction designation. For the Corps' budget, that's where the real money is. Now, the other part of my trifecta is the $5 million that Congressman Randy Weber has included in the FY25 appropriation bill for the Corps. That, of course, is mixed up in all the debate on the federal budget. Congress will be returning in November. They're going to have to deal with disaster supplemental appropriation, as well as either a omnibus bill that would fund the government or a continuing resolution that will at least keep the government running until they decide how they're going to approach full-year appropriation bills. But the important point for us is that project request is in that bill. And I think that places us in a very good position. And once we have that, we can immediately, once FY25 appropriations is approved, we immediately move quickly towards the work plan that the Corps will put forward for FY25. So you can see some momentum building here and some activity building here. Obviously, once we are able to move forward with the accelerated funding, that is when the district will start looking at organizing the community groups that we want to put in place as we're working on PEG design for the gate system, for the dune system. So I'll definitely keep you informed about all of that as we move closer to that activity. Can I answer any questions?
Explain to them how all these beach nourishment projects that are happening will be covered.
I'm sorry?
About how the beach projects will be repetitive.
Well, that to me is the absolute deal of a lifetime with regards to the Coastal Texas project for Galveston. The Double Dune expanded beach system goes from the seawall down to San Luis Pass. It covers the entire west end of Galveston. Once that is complete, we will then enter into a maintenance schedule for that, or renourishment schedule for that beach and dune system once every 6 years for the next 50 years.
Wow.
Okay, that's 50-50, 50 fed, 50 non-federal sponsor. Okay, so if it works the way I'm hoping it'll work, we have done, I think, a very good job of helping the Texas legislature understand the economic supply chain importance of the Coastal Texas project. And the Texas legislature has stepped up with money. And my hope is, and you have to remember with the Coastal Texas project, it's one project. That means with several elements to it. And one of those elements is the beach and dune system. The other element is the large gate system. You've got the ecosystem. You've got the Clear Lake Dickinson smaller gate system. But you have these elements, but it's still considered one project. So our salesmanship, if you will, to the legislature has been, this is an economic supply chain protection system. Our beach and dune system is not only an economic protection because our beaches and dunes are our economy. They are our largest tourism attraction. They are also a storm surge protection system for our residents. They are also an environmental protection for our beach nourishment. So I think if we can keep the Texas legislature focused on the economic importance of coastal communities, particularly the upper Texas coast, and what we contribute to manufacturing, to tourism, and to the state's economy. We will hopefully keep them in line for continuing that maintenance and operation as well, in partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So that is a deal of a lifetime for Galveston. Every 6 years for the next 50 years. I mean, that's the goal. Yes, sir.
In this early dune design work, is there any way to still get geotube reinforced dunes as part of the project? Because as that engineering keeps going, eventually you're going to get to a point where the engineering's so far done, it can't be revisited.
Yes, sir. The General Land Office, in agreement with the Gulf Coast Protection District, has been working on a study that they are hoping to have a report out, I think, in the next few months, on options and alternatives for dune reinforcement. Okay, geotube obviously is one option, but they wanted to look at several opportunities for reinforcing those dunes. I think there is a collective consensus on our board of the importance of fortifying those dunes, okay? And we want to find the best way to do that. We have seen, obviously, a lot of success with geotubes and recognize that as an option. But this was money available to us, and they are looking into sand sourcing and dune reinforcement. So yes, that is most definitely on our agenda and high on our list.
One thing related to that, it might be helpful as those people are making that analysis to at least view the history, particularly at the west end of that seawall, of what was the impermeable dunes that did not work. For instance, a clay core reinforced 60-foot wide dune. It didn't last. It was like a hot knife through butter. And
Sure.
So hopefully people aren't going to be reinventing the systems that have already been tried, tested, and failed.
I completely agree with you, and fortunately we have the General Land Office taking the lead on this, and they are very familiar with the conditions of our beaches and dunes, particularly in the area that you're talking about, and with their lead role working with Councilmember Robb and the Corps on the beach renourishment projects going on right now. That discussion is front and center on what is going to be sustainable, and that's the bottom line. I think that is why our board is collectively feels so strongly about fortifying these beaches, because this is a huge investment and we need to be talking about what is sustainable and providing that essential protection. So,
And just as an add-on to that, I have had just recently some great conversations with John Buckingham about, I have a pretty loud mouth, I usually don't need this, about geotubes, and it astounded me that she was completely unaware, her staff forgot to tell her, that we still have 2 existing geotubes that are highly effective, that have been in place since 2003. And if you haven't gone to look at them, I suggest you do. One is in Beachside Village, and one is right down the street at the Holiday Inn that was the old Silver Reef. And that's perhaps the best example, because that is considered now a stable or a creating beach. And Kahala, which is right to the east of that, they pay their own money and they put in double dune, vegetate their dunes. And you can look at Burl, that Holiday Inn dune just looks like a perfectly vegetated dune, and it's fortified. And yet Santa Kahala lost their first dune. They did maintain their second. But when we went through Laura Beta Delta, I actually even used those pictures in my submittal to the Corps. The double dune system was completely gone, but again, the Holiday Inns was there and pristine and perfect.
Yeah, and that's the message that we are, want to convey. It is the definition of insanity to not fortify these dunes with the investment that's going to be involved in constructing these dunes, to expect that they just won't get washed away. And that fortification is needed, and we need to find that delicate balance of sustainable fortification that will be environmentally friendly and keep our beaches pristine.
I've always thought that at the end of the seawall, because it's such a transition, we really need a breakwater out to stop that swell around there, that because of the end of the seawall.
Yes.
I think that makes it dig in.
Well, that is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sometimes they thought they might put a breakwater out.
Right. Well, that is why I'm so eager for you as a group to be aware of when we do start organizing these community groups for input, that you participate, because it's that kind of observation, that kind of experience that you bring to the dunes and the beaches on the West End that are going to be so invaluable for us to be aware of and consider. Can I answer any other questions? Well, again, thank you so much for letting
Thank you,
me jump
Sally.
ahead.
Always great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well,
I just hope you didn't think it was a courtyard like I did too. I texted him, but I have not heard from him. But he also lives in Lake Island, which is where that like came.
the bike race. So, what next? I can't dance.
BMAC update.
There's no meeting.
Chris, anything?
There's been no meetings for the last month.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Well, board, anything you'd like to discuss?
Maybe you should try calling.
Pardon?
Try calling him, I tried.
Jerry, where are we gonna have our first new meeting next year?
Probably at the church, West Isle Church. It seems to be convenient. It's, the only problem we have there is getting the food there. And, but we can't go back to the country club.
No.
That's gone. So it's either gonna be here or at the church. Or, I'm sorry, what we started using is the Marriott on the seawall, and that's been pretty good. And I think we don't have January there, but we had February, March, April, and May at the Marriott. So here, Marie's trying to get a hold of Roger.
Your earlier point on that breakwater, that's been cost particularly because the scour that was created by the end of the season.
There's been all kinds of proposals. You can put it straight across, or maybe make an L out there. There's something to stop that.
Yeah, well, there's supposed to be a demonstration project
There is.
under the water.
Yeah, they said they could put it under the water.
Right, that would break, well, I've seen that in either Grand Cayman or.
I can do an update.
Lots of places where they have breakwaters.
Marie is going to speak for Roger Race. Okay, Marie. Thank you.
I might be making up some of this.
You can make it up if you want.
Roger's just gonna have to make it good.
Well, obviously everyone is aware there's a lot going on at the port. So the grain terminals have been taken down, and that area is being prepared for lay down cargo. And you'll hear certain parties that will complain forever about Roger. And to me, Roger Reese is one of the best things that ever happened to the Port of Galveston. So you have to understand, with all these cruise lines, aside from covering the cost of the debt, the bonds they did to build the terminals, that all gets reimbursed by the cruise lines, that also generates the revenue that is used for the cargo improvements. So they are working on that West End area to get that completed. But one of the biggest issues that they face, and this is something where you can all call your congressman. Your congressman down here is Randy Weber, but some of you are second homeowners, call your congressman wherever you live. We need to get the appropriations to dredge the entire ship channel. Galveston ship channel, correct. And so it should be at a depth of 45 feet. Right now it's at 38 feet. So that actually prohibits some of the boats coming in, which is the issue. And when your port is quantified, it's the activity at all of the businesses, whether it's on the port land or just west of the property. So what's key about that quantification, like where they stand in all the ports in the United States, that's what triggers the amount of money we receive for dredging. So we were actually allocated something like, with like 25 million, of which they got 0. When they came out to dredge on the allocation that they did receive in 2023, they had dredged half the channel. Something happened somewhere else. They pulled the dredges. So right now we only have half of the ship channel dredged to depth. It actually hasn't been the entire ship channel dredged to the depth it should be for like 10 years. And we have moved up in status. I think we're like 30 something in the United States. But if we ever actually get that full depth, we will move into the low 20s, which will open up a whole other pot of money. So I know I'm going to be joining the team who will be going to Washington in January to talk with the legislators about getting our full share, because it is so key to the entire port. And then when especially when it comes to like the ship's berths and things, the port has actually had to pay for that themselves. So it's key that we get our share of federal money. So write your congressman, write your senators. I know everyone's sitting with bated breath to see what happens in the election. But there are great things going on at the port, and we are the port in demand. And here's another good side to it, since Kimberly Denasi has become the top dog at the park board. She is working together with Roger Reese They are working together with the cruise companies to come out with packages where if a cruise is leaving on Saturday, people come in on Wednesday and spend a couple nights and then go on to the cruise ship. Because it frustrated me, the previous head just wouldn't talk to the port. They never received a cent of hot tax for advertising. You know, never a cent, which is astounding because we already know they're putting heads in beds. So now they are working together. The cruise lines are eager to help. They support our local charities. So it's really become a beautiful partnership. So that is moving together as well. The concerns that you'll hear from people have to do with traffic, and there have been 2 awards for, one is the 61st Street flyover, which more benefits all of us, but the other is actually a harbor side flyover that would take people to internal roads in the port area, which is already funded projects to improve the internal road system in the port itself. So they are doing everything they can to make it as easy. Also, there has been, I sit on the board of the Houston Galveston Area Council, which is the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I sit on the board and I sit on the Transportation Policy Committee. And we are the ones who give the money for all TxDOT projects, federal funding, such as the Pelican Island Bridge, and projects like that. And we have a great relationship working with them. And it was shortly after Burl. It was like 2 weeks after Burl. They had a retreat, all-day retreat that I felt like going to as much as I felt like hitting my head. But I went to it and I was so happy because it was all the movers and the shakers. Because when they look at distributing transportation funds, they look at your population. And I'm like, folks, that makes no sense. We have, what are they estimating, 8.5 million people that come to our island, and you're funding us like a city of 53,000, and they finally understood that. And it was also a great time to make everyone aware, and actually this was coming more from the city management side, the stalling. I said, then I have a bridge that went from 75 million, the way you hear this, it's now at 245 million. And it has been more the city stalling than anyone else. So I was able, and not that it's just me, but with the help of the powers that be, we were able to get that moving. And the design and so forth has never stopped. And you'll hear people from the city saying, oh, what's driving up the cost is the fact that they're going to have pedestrian and bike lanes. And that is a total mistruth. It's because it's getting federal highway money. The federal government requires us to do that. But so myself and our head regional guy from Barumba, he and I are going to start working with the MPO for them to come up with the extra money that is now needed, as well as to make sure we have funds for ongoing maintenance. But they're expecting the construction of the Pelican Island Bridge, which will be huge for our port, in 2027. and they estimated it'll take 4 years to build it.
So we gotta tear the old one down.
They're not tearing the old one down until after.
Oh, okay.
But yesterday, it was either yesterday or the day before, it did get stuck up. And I don't mean it was ignoring people, that got stuck open. And so they were able to manually get it down, but now it cannot raise, which will be real interesting for the Harvest Moon people that decide to take the intercoastal, because they're going to have to come back and go around. But I'm trying to think, let's see what else is happening at the...
One thing I remember last year when Roger talked to us, he was talking about when they move west, they have some slips that they gotta fill in.
Yes.
He said, well, if we take that big grain elevator
Right.
down, hopefully we can take that concrete.
And I think that's still the plan.
Okay, oh, they haven't done that.
I
But it's
couldn't...
coming down?
I think it's already down, yeah.
That's a lot of concrete.
That's a lot of concrete. I mean, that would make total sense. But I don't know that much about
That
it
was one
to
of
be
my
able to
questions for
answer
him.
that question, yeah. So, Mike? It's fully funded. It's actually being fully funded by TxDOT. I think the issue that they're running into right now has to do with access of property. So once that's completed, it will start. So I would say somewhere in the next 2 years. Any other questions that I may or may not be able to answer?
Can you touch base on the third cruise ship terminal coming?
Okay, so the third cruise terminal is being built by MSC, which is one of probably the largest cruise ship, multifaceted shipping companies. So that will not only benefit us cruise-wise, it will actually benefit us cargo-wise. And that's the same one that Norwegian Cruise Lines will be using. So that, I think, is already beginning construction.
Where exactly is that?
It's at, I think it's at where it will be where the Del Monte is. So that's like between 10th and 16th. If I'd have known Roger wasn't here, I would have brought some cheat sheets.
Doing great.
Let's see, I'm trying to think anything else. Oh, I am one of the members of, we are starting a real estate committee at the port that will be looking at how we can add some green areas and promenades and whatnot. Because one of the things that the cruise lines, all of them, are so excited about, and if you've ever cruised out of any other port, they usually sit right in the middle of a highly industrial area. And we're probably one of the only cruise lines or cruise terminal location, thank you, that you can tell I only have one cup of coffee, that sits right across the street from the Strand, from, our downtown area. So another grant, if I didn't say this already, I meant to, another grant that was given by the HGAC is the money to fix that walkover. So the port did study one cruise day at that 25th Street light, just counting how many passengers crossed the street, and it was something like 14,000. I mean, it was an astounding number. And if you ever see, because I think some people go to the areas where you can park for free, because you see them going through the Strand with all their suitcases, and me, I'm a creature of luxury. I want to park as close as I can and have whomever help me, but so that walkway is already underway, it's already funded, and
I
so.
think they lacked elevators, didn't they? I think they lacked elevators.
It was something about lacking elevators and having to do with the customs and whatnot. But the other thing that the cruise ship are bringing to us, and somebody like Art might complain about it, because I'm already getting complaints as we get more and more traffic, is they're interested in getting our airport to the level that we could have commercial travel. So now I hear from all the neighborhoods near the airport, wait a minute, there's planes flying out of here. It's like, yes, and the airport was there 50 years before the neighborhood was. And, but we are in the process, we have already gotten grants from FAA to increase the runway size. And we're looking initially at how that the terminal that's there can now be used, because you obviously have to have the separation for Homeland Security and for customs and things like that. Even though we are classified an international airport now, because of the fact that we take, when they bring the Shriners kids in from South America and other parts of the world, burn patients, they come in through our airport. So we can already accommodate, a 737 and whatnot. And then what they do is they bring customs in for those particular planes, whereas we would have a full-time TSA and whatnot. Which is also required at the port. And you would be, well, maybe you'll be intrigued by this. I was intrigued by it. But I'm a member of the Pelican Island Ship Channel Committee of the Chamber, and one of the speakers was the gentleman from Homeland Security, which we actually have a Homeland Security office right in the federal court building, which is on 25th. And every single cruise, they apprehend like 10 to 14 people that are some sort of major criminal that they're on Homeland Security list, which was astounding to me. But I think there was even one that hit the paper. But that happens every single cruise line. And then they also are the ones who monitor, I guess, the big scam that's going on in high schools right now, where kids will be, it'll be somebody most times in Nigeria that they'll target football players. No comment there, but it'll be this picture of this beautiful girl, and I'll send you a picture of mine if you send me pictures of yours. And then once they get the photos, then they say, if you don't give us 10 to 20,000 in a week, then this is going to hit your newspapers and whatnot. They also, it's astounding to me how much of that goes on in like our metropolitan area.
Somewhat related question. Is it finally decided exactly where Battleship Texas is going to go when it leaves dry dock?
Right now, it is inked to go behind Tillman's yacht, which is, I would say it's between Tillman's yacht and the oil rig. But I do not think it's been approved by Coast Guard or the Corps or the GLO yet. So I would say that's where it's tentatively going. But I was in a meeting where the Coast Guard was present and they were saying, well, they're gonna have to show us how they can move that when a storm comes in. And everybody knows it's not really a seaworthy vessel, even with all the repairs. And then in some of my discussions with Buckingham, she was like, hey, if that thing did sink, then it's the GLO's responsibility to move it, because you can't have a major obstruction in your ship channel. So I would say right now, tentative, that they've inked a contract for it to go there, but I still think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Thank you.
Back to the airport, I remember reading, they said if they extend that runway for bigger planes, then it would be beneficial, like after a storm, they could bring in troops or big cargo planes
Right.
to bring all the supplies.
And they do that now, but there's one runway. Mike would be a good person to have as a speaker. But one of their major runways floods, so this would eliminate that. All this work is currently happening as we speak. Yep. Any other questions?
You've been a good Roger Reese. Thank you.
About a nice round for Marie. Well, do we have anything else?
You want to talk Facebook
Chris?
or anything? Just remind people of our Facebook page. Remind them of our Facebook page.
Yeah, is Guy here at all? Okay. Does anybody do the Facebook page?
I do, I always post updates on it too.
Marie posts updates on it.
A lot of people, it's getting pretty active.
Yeah. I have to get my grandkids to show me how to do it, so I can't do it. Well, the next meeting that we have it's going to be in January. We stopped having meetings in November and December. Nobody came. So, but our next one will be in January. And I'm trying to think, we usually have it with the mayor and the city manager giving us an update on Galveston. But Marie has done that today really exceptionally well. How about a nice round? What she doesn't represent us. If there are any more questions?
Well, there is one more comment I should have mentioned about the port, is the port is in negotiations with the Port of Houston on that land, on Pelican Island,
How they might join together to come up with the best projects on that. And then the city is also looking at, city owns the property over there as well. Well, technically the city owns the port, but a spot where they can put like a wastewater plant and utility things that will assist in other companies going in there.
Any windmills yet?
No windmills, no. I think the GLO is highly opposed to that project.
Because of the bird migration. The dredging, they dredge that ship channel, they gonna put the spoil over there?
The dredging the ship channel is what's going to go on West Beach.
I'm talking about the Galveston channel.
The Galveston channel, depending upon the area of where they put it, I know they just raised the levees on Pelican Island to have more space to put it. There are some of the private companies actually sift it, clean it, and it has qualified as beach sand. I believe that's what was used in front of your project, as well as it did the Tierra Dunes. So it just, depending upon where it is, it's either something that would qualify for beach or it's too silty.
Thanks again, Marie. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we're adjourned. So thanks all for coming. Appreciate it.